and prove people wrong, no matter what. Show them labels do not dictate who you are, and gotta be KeithAndrewNetwork.
Ladies and gentlemen, the following is brought to you by the KeithAndrewNetwork. You're watching Breaking Barriers. Today, we sit down with Trina Kennedy. Trina Kennedy has been a guest on the KeithAndrewNetwork before, and we are more than welcome to have her back on the show once again. Today, we sit down and talk about her upcoming books because she is an upcoming independent book author writer. She's also a life coach. So we're going to hear her great experiences, her stories, and how she helps other people in the entertainment world and life in general. So make sure to hit that like, share, and subscribe. This episode will be available on Facebook, LinkedIn, and all social medias. The first 3 minutes will be available on Instagram and TikTok. Now, when we come back from this commercial break, we're going to hear from Ms. Kennedy.
Hi, I'm Trina Kennedy. I'm an author, a coach, and a trainer, and I'm just about to sit down with for an incredible interview with Keith Andrews Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm your host, Keith Andrew, and welcome to the Keith Andrew Network. I'm sitting down with Ms. Kennedy, who's known for being an upcoming book author, speaker, and coach. You've been a guest on the Keith Andrew Network before. It's great to have you with you.
Thanks. It's great to be back, Keith.
The honor's on mine. For people who want to know, what is the Keith Andrew Network? The whole point of my talk show is to show people that even with having a learning disability, I can still amount to something. And at the same time, I'm able to turn myself into an example for people out there dealing with any types of learning disabilities or disabilities to never give up and prove people wrong. Prove them, but labels do not dictate who you are and who you're going to be. So prove them, makes them out something. First thing we're going to talk about, first subject actually we're going to talk about, is you mentioned you were a book author. Tell us about some of the books that you have written and where are they available for people to buy?
Sure. Thanks, Keith. My first book is titled From Trauma to Triumph and What Lies Between. That is just my personal story about growing up with some traumatic experiences and how that impacted me, as well as my knowledge as a social worker for the past 33 years around trauma and healing. And my second book, I collaborated with 21 other authors, so 22 authors in total, contributed a chapter to the book She Thrives, Navigating Health, Hormones, and Healing. So both of those can be purchased through my website, trinaleekennedy.ca. And you're the first place to announce this. I've also written a children's book titled I Am Roman. So that was a book dedicated to my first grandson. He's 3 months now, and it's a book of positive affirmations. So that's not quite ready to be released yet, but that should be coming here in the next few weeks.
No, that's absolutely tremendous. I would love to see it when it's available. The next thing I want to talk to you about, it's the big thing going around today, and it's different from the first time that we talked. The first time was an icebreaker, but now we're just going to focus on the key points of your career. But we're going to stay focused on the audio, audiobooks, and that's the subject we're going to talk about. We're going to focus on the books that you're writing. Got to go ahead of myself. Subject I want to talk to you now is, how do you feel about audiobooks, and would you turn your books into audiobooks? Because those are a big thing going on today.
Yes, absolutely. It is on my to-do list to create an audiobook for my first book, She Thrives, that's my second book, From Trauma to Triumph and What Lies Between. I think it's important. Not everybody loves to read. Lots of people like to hear stories auditory. We all learn differently. So I've had several people request me do it in an audiobook. So I definitely have plans to do that. And I actually tend to listen to more audiobooks than I do read, just because I'm able to do a few more things. I can listen to the story while I'm driving or doing laundry. So it allows me to still be able to consume books while kind of getting other things done. So I'm actually prefer audiobooks over the hardcover books myself as well.
No, you're absolutely right. For an example, yesterday, my dad and me were listening to the I Am Michael Bennett series.
Mm.
I that's a great series. Tony, I'm having a brain fart. Holy shit. Tom Clancy does tremendous great books. Tom Clancy and James Patterson. There's so many other great authors out there that do audiobooks. My favorite series that I like listening to is I Am Michael Bennett. And hopefully they would turn it into, a series. They turn Jack Reacher, that was an audiobook, into a TV show. Now the problem is you have to find the right actor, you have to find the right you're reading the book, that's one way. But when you're trying to turn the audiobook into a video game or a movie, there's always a hard disconnect saying, will the people relate to this to a video game or a movie as to an audiobook? Do you agree? Like, for an example, the Jurassic Park book is complete similar, but a little bit was different from the movie.
Yes, I think things are always lost a bit in translation between a book and a movie. I think there's a lot more detail we can put into books than they can capture in a movie. So I think sometimes, like you said, there's some translations lost, and I think part of reading or listening to audiobooks is using our own imagination to create what those characters look like and the scenes and those sorts of things. I think that's part of the experience. So I definitely think there's a piece of that that's lost when you make a book into a movie.
Personally, I think if you wrote a book, and especially in the movies, the Marvel superheroes, if you're doing a movie or a comic book movie, you have the script right in front of you. You have the, freaking book right in front of you, the comic book. Do it line for line. I get it. You don't want to make it 3 hours, and 2 hours is kind of a little too much for people, but it's kind of like, okay, you start off fine. Here's the beginning, here's the middle, and then you kind of like have ADD and like, oh, well, what's that over there? And then you kind of drift off. And for me, it's kind of like I have a card in my hand, has a beginning, middle, end. If you have the story right in front of you, there's absolutely no reason why you have to add things, leave parts out. Like for your books, I bet they are terrific, by the way. But was there any parts of your book where you're like, you know what? I really want to add this to the story, but I feel it would take away from it.
No, I put everything in I felt was relevant to the story.
Well, that's how you should do it, absolutely. Now, you mentioned that you were a public speaker. Who inspired you to be a public speaker?
That's a great question. So I remember watching Dr. Jody Carrington. She's an international speaker, but she's from Olds, which is just a half an hour from where I live. So she was when she started her speaking career, it was a lot of local speaking events in central Alberta, which is where I reside. So it was probably, I'm going to say, 10 to maybe even 12 years ago I first heard her speak. And she was so engaging and so inspiring. I remember watching her on stage and thinking, I want to do that someday. So I would have to say Dr. Jody Carrington.
Absolutely. We're going to take a quick commercial break and we're going to continue this when we come back. We're back from a quick commercial break, and the following is brought to you by social media. Make sure to follow both of us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and all social medias. The links will be on the description on the bottom. So the first one I want to talk to you about is, what were some of your favorite social medias? Obviously, you're on LinkedIn, you're on Facebook and Instagram, but have these certain websites impacted your career to give you opportunities that you really normally wouldn't have gotten without them?
Oh, social media. Social media is the bane of my existence, to be honest, Keith. It's it feels like a lot to be constantly and mindfully trying to always post content. I know it's a part of our world and it's a big part of getting my name out and my message out. I don't necessarily love it. I'm just being honest, but I know it's also necessary. So it's kind of a, yeah, it's the bane of my existence. So I am on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. I was doing TikTok as well for a little bit, but it just became too much. And I think it's better to do a few really well than spread myself too thin. I also sometimes feel that when I put content out there, it just kind of goes out into this black abyss, not
Right.
necessarily getting a ton of feedback, which is sometimes not well, I guess confusing to know, is this even really landing? But then I'll get messages or I'll get people going, "Oh, I love your content." And I'll be like, "Oh, well, that's good to know. That's great. Thank you." So it's sometimes hard to really read where it's landing and with who because it's not necessarily getting a lot of feedback. Um, However, I've been booked for speaking engagements and stuff like that, and a lot of people have said that they found me through social media. So that's good. So I'm going to say yes, it has helped me create opportunities for my business in coaching and speaking. But it's also not my most favorite part of the business is worrying about the content.
No, you're absolutely right. The first thing we're going to talk about that's on the screen right now, it's TikTok. TikTok, you've seen so many people with like for me, I have 1,000 people following me. Now, with that being said, when you go live, all that numbers or traffic or followers, they're not going to show up all at once. You have to promote it and say, I'm going to be there at the day and time. I only go live on TikTok if I have someone to talk to. I try going live on TikTok. I feel like I'm sitting there with my thumb up my ass, saying, "Hey, I'm look at me. I'm doing this. I'm doing that." 5 minutes go by. Huh? This really sucks. TikTok is hit and miss because you have to have a gimmick. For me, I'm a talk show host with a disability. You're a book author. There's a lot of wink, wink psychics on there. There's a lot of people that do dog training. You have to have a gimmick because you can't just go live and expect people to be like, and who or any of those because you have to be, it's a performance art. If you're not entertaining, you're not going to get people interested. So TikTok's hit and miss. But YouTube, and I would recommend this for you. And going back to your book talked about Triumph, Tragedy to Triumph, is, a drama to your first book. I'm gonna butcher that. Good things on the screen, right? Part of my disability. But the point
Okay.
I gotta mention, you can do chapter one today and you can read it. Either you can show your face and you can read the book, or you can have pictures on the background while you're reading the book. So that's great for YouTube. There's a lot of people who are voiceover actors that use TikTok and go live and do audio edition. So I would recommend going to TikTok and say, today I'm going to read chapter one of my book. It's always great to engage, but it isn't something that it's snap your fingers, it's got to drop in your lap. It's going to be really hard to engage with certain audiences, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, those are great ideas.
So the next one I want to ask you is Facebook versus Instagram. Have you gotten any opportunities that you gotten from Facebook versus LinkedIn, or do you prefer LinkedIn over Facebook?
I think Facebook is great for I think updates, but engagement is pretty low. And LinkedIn, I think, is more of a fit for me because of, I guess, my audience and who I'm marketing to is professionals, and definitely with my coaching, because I coach high functioning women who are transitioning from performance driven success to identity led leadership so that they can live and lead without self abandonment. So certainly my right fit clients for speaking and for coaching, I think, tend to use LinkedIn the most. So I think for me, that's the platform I prefer the most.
No, I agree with you. Now one thing I do recommend is when you do something like a fan page, and I'm guilty of this because I've been doing this for a long time. It's you should have two fan pages, one on LinkedIn and the other one is on Facebook. I spent so many years investing my time and to do like, Facebook fan page. Hey, can you like my page? Can you share it? And then it kind of bit me in the ass when he kind of like, oh, no one uses Facebook or your account gets hacked or whatever. But if you have it on LinkedIn, you can say, here's my professional page, and here is my fan page as well. So having it all in one spot, I mean,
Mhm.
it's great to have multiple fan pages because the more numbers you have, the better it's going to be, obviously. But LinkedIn, it's something I think is better than Facebook because it's more professional.
Yeah, I agree.
So the next one I want to ask you is you mentioned that you are a trainer and coach. So the first one I want to ask you is what is difficult about being a coach for young people?
What is difficult about being a coach?
Yes.
Uh, well, again, I coach high functioning women, so I have a pretty specific niche. I think, for those who are wanting to do coaching, it's important to identify what your niche is. And I think with anything too, it's client attraction. Getting enough clients can be sometimes tricky. That's probably the biggest challenge I have with being a coach.
Have you ever, because you mentioned you work with women, have you ever coached women that see past your expectations, right? They actually became a model, an actress. Actually, you work because it was my show, for an example. You give people an opportunity, but you will be surprised what doors you open by working with this individual. So have you ever went back to these women that you worked with and say, hey, I didn't know you became this, or I didn't know you became a CEO or an actor or an actress, or have you worked with people in the entertainment world?
Not to this point. I haven't. And so when I'm coaching, it's more coaching to what vision that they want to see for their life, with really specific goals. And then we do a lot of identity work because there's a lot of things that hold us back as women, those limiting beliefs. So that's where we spend a lot of time unpacking those things that kind of get in our way. Um, so many women I've coached have stepped fully into their vision. I'm not really coaching women who are wanting to be actresses or models or anything like that. Not at this point. These are typically already very high functioning women. So by all standards of what society says is successful, like these are successful CEOs, but these are typically women who are burnt out. They're
Right.
burnt out and being successful in systems that actually require them to abandon themselves. So it's helping these women fully step into identity led leadership. So it's where they can continue to be successful, but where they're not abandoning themselves anymore, because that's part of what our patriarchal systems, unfortunately, have created. For women, not just women, men as well. It hasn't been a kind system to males or females. So I think my coaching is a little bit different in terms of who I'm supporting and kind of what they're wanting to step into in their life.
All right, so the next two questions I think actually fits this. Don't mind me, I have so many questions on these cards.
Okay.
Like The questions like for like what would he ask for a writer, what would he ask for an actor, but I changed the writing to actor to director. So there's similar questions, but you're adding a twist to it. But this one
Great.
I found interesting because you are a coach. When you're coaching a bunch of people, what are usually the biggest obstacle you have to face, and how do you help them overcome it?
Well, just as I mentioned, it's the
Right.
biggest obstacle women face is our limiting beliefs and kind of some of the traumas we carry and the stories we tell ourselves. And so a lot of those things are in our subconscious, which is 95% of our brain function is subconscious. And so they may intellectually know at a conscious level, this is what I want and this is what I need and this is, I know how to do it. But until we do the work at the subconscious level, those patterns, those limiting beliefs, those barriers, that's where the deeper work lies. And so I think that's always the biggest obstacle for me as a coach to help women move through, but also the biggest obstacle for the women. But man, as soon as they work through that and they start to see patterns and they start to change the story, it's incredible to see how things really start to unfold for them in terms of what their vision is.
No, and I can relate. I'm not a woman, but I can definitely relate because, well, I hope I'm not a woman. I know, bad joke. I try to make have fun with everyone. You are your own worst enemy.
Mhm.
For me, I always was told I'm not qualified, I'm not educated, I can't do this, I can't do that. And especially, there are some parts of your life, doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, two genders, by the way, doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, you always get burnt out. You can say you've been coaching for a long time, and I bet you had some roadblocks. And what am I doing? I felt so burnt out. Or the women that you worked with, they're either CEOs or anything, right? I'm hitting a mental roadblock, you know, and I'm guilty of this. Sometimes I do hit a burnt out moment, but when you're hard on yourself, the biggest thing is you have to step back and you have to re look at the life saying, you said you wanted to, for an example, you mentioned you were a book author, you're a public speaker and a trainer. And but you sometimes you're like, I'm just tired of it. I'm really hitting this mental block. Sometimes it's always good to have somebody to talk to and say, maybe step back, take some time off, and reevaluate your situation. But don't give up on being a book author or a trainer. Re-enter the career by looking at it from a different point of view.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely.
But you mentioned as you were talking about a book author, what are some of your strong values? What are your values for being an author and a public speaker?
Well, my values in any context, no matter what role I'm showing up in, is authenticity, integrity, and curiosity. Those are my core guiding values.
No, absolutely. Either you're gonna do something right or you're not gonna do it at all. Those are my values. And what is the most rewarding part and this is going to cover everything we already talked about. What is the most rewarding part out of all of this?
The most rewarding part is just getting to support, help, encourage, guide women on their healing journeys to be able to fully step into their greatness. We are all here, on this earth for incredible greatness. We're not here just to get up, go to work, pay bills, repeat. That's locking us into that old system. And so when I get to support women in different ways, whether through coaching or through my books or through training that they may attend, it is such an honor to be in service of women in that way that I'm again supporting them, encouraging them, guiding them, whatever that looks like. to fully step in and embrace their greatness. It's incredibly rewarding.
Now, for people who want to get in touch with you, as you mentioned social media, what is the best way? Because you are based in Canada. So, for an example, if I know people in the States would like to work with you, are you just based in Canada or do you do Zoom classes?
Yeah, so I coach internationally. I have some women I'm coaching internationally, so it's through Zoom. We just figure out based on our time zones what's going to work for us. So that's absolutely doable. I offer a free 30-minute clarity call, so no obligation or pressure, just a conversation to explore, how I might be able to support them and if it's a good fit. So that can all be booked through my website, trinaleekennedy.ca.
No, absolutely. With that being said, tonight it's TNA Wrestling that's available. You can watch TNA Wrestling available on YouTube and AMC. With that being said, are you a professional wrestling fan?
No, can't say I am.
Well, it's not for everybody, but it is a good outlet. And but with that being said, going back to the international thing, the Keith Andrew Network is international. I have interviewed people from the United States, Canada, England, Australia. We're going to have somebody from Iceland. I interviewed someone from Japan. As long as you have YouTube and you can watch the Keith Andrew Network 24/7, you can enjoy over 1,256 episodes. Anytime, any place, anywhere. Doesn't matter if you have a phone, a tablet, a computer. As long as you have internet, Keith Andrew Network is available 24/7. But I do have a couple questions for you off the air. Well, wrapping up, I want you to be brutally honest. When I approached you to be a guest on my show for a second time, what made you say yes, and how do you feel now?
Well, I enjoyed our first interview, and I love your message and your brand of, not letting your disability get in your way. Because again, as I said, we all have greatness in us. So anytime I can support somebody in their dreams, I'm more than happy to do that. And I just think you do a really great job, and I love your message. So
No, I agree. And where are your books available? Are they on Insta? Well, obviously you could sell them on Instagram and TikTok, but are they also available on YouTube to watch and listen to? And are they on Amazon?
yeah, you can buy both of those books on Amazon.
No, absolutely. Those links are a part of the video and they're in the description, so they are available. Now, with that being said, it was a real honor and privilege having you as a guest. You're always welcome to be a guest on my show. With that being said, this video will be aired Friday. So if you're watching the episode, we air brand new episodes of the Keith Andrew Network every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We tape every day, but the episodes will be aired on those 3 days. So if you're watching it right now, it is Friday, and make sure to check out WWE SmackDown on the USA Network. With that being said, make sure to like and subscribe to the Keith Andrew Network. We have brand new guests always available on our show. By being a guest, you're supporting a talk show host with a disability. In return, you're getting an open format to share your message, share your story, and you're having a normal conversation. With that being said, it was a real honor. And until we meet again, I catch you later. Thank you and have a good night.